How's it going? It's Chris with Chris's Comments. Site discussing common sense on common ground, no matter what the subject. Now, I'm going back to immigration like the way I originally wanted to. I know yesterday I mentioned something about Biden and his firing up to 5 people of his administration for past usage of medical marijuana or marijuana, whether it be medical, legal, illegal, it didn't matter. It kind of threw me for a loop, given the man who's saying, don't judge my kid for his usage in the past, to all of a sudden fire people for their usage in the past. Again, I think it's just a way to get rid of some bad choices, and he's using that as an excuse. That's just my theory. Because again, it's only been 5 employees that he's getting rid of. Now, that throw off over to one side, back to a very huge concerning issue concerning the immigration. One of my earlier videos, I said that there's judgment going on it by political leaders who haven't even made it to the border yet, and they already declaring it a mess, and the proof that some of them are just plain already made their decisions about this are calling it's a Biden mess. Okay, he just got in office, and all of a sudden it's his mess, and it's this horrible thing that he's done, and all this stuff. So obviously, those are already judgment of people. And again, it's coming from a lot of leaders that hadn't even gone to the border yet. Now that they have, they're still sticking to the same comments, while the rest of the political leaders are, probably doing some fundraising right now. I know AOC did a pretty good fundraiser job for those of us here in Texas when we went through that winter crisis. So I wouldn't be surprised if she and others like her pop up with these fantastic donations, while all the critics are, trying to think of a new way to just look down at it and discredit, the same people that are judging right now before anything happens. Speaking of right now, the Homeland Security, the man that's in charge of that, Alejandro Mayorkas, has already made a claim that 3 new facilities are built as of last week. He's not giving a timeline as to when they're opening, but don't say but. However, he says this quote, "We have dealt with the surges in the past, and the men and the women of the Department of Homeland Security will succeed." Now that's a good, bold statement to say. There's a concern about this, though. There's a concern about this, and I've mentioned this in one of the previous videos. Biden maintains, I know what's going on at those facilities, and he says he'll be available when in need of the situation at first hand. Okay? Again, concerning. That's some bold talk coming from somebody, that really isn't always going to be permitted to attend to situations firsthand. And a lot of them concerning criminal activity at the border, as I've mentioned earlier. And what I'm talking about is the 4,500 complaints of sexual assaults and abuse of immigrant children committed by adult staff members who are in charge of detaining them. Okay, now I've already made this discussion, and I've given how absurd some of these reports are, saying, well, most of them are done by minors onto other minors. You know, only 178 have been done by adults. Right. Out of 1,303 cases, you can differentiate that and have that as an excuse. That is not an excuse. Much less is it even believable. You got a bunch of starving, freezing children with no energy, no sleep, no light, as in sunlight, daylight, malnourished, separated from their families, and they're taking the time to get busy with other kids. That is just downright stupid. Okay? In my eyes, it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. What is not stupid and very serious is the testimony of all those migrants and migrant children especially that have totaled up to a total of 4,500 cases that have clearly, you know, they can't be lying or forging or making any kind of crap up like this because of certain things that have been done and certain mannerisms and stuff. A person can't just claim that there was something going on, you know, in a dark area or taken over to some other place. You know, there's videotape of those in Arizona. Now, for some reason, the heat is on us in Texas, but in Arizona, there was video of children being slammed into walls and pushed and struck, you know, in the opened areas where surveillance videos were capturing them. So it stands to reason that there is video of them being taken to either another room, if not adult staff members going into the rooms where children are being held and just completely, you know, trespassed against. That is a concern. So again, back to, you know, Mayorkas and Biden, who say, you know, we've dealt with these surges in the past and we will succeed. Biden, who says, I know what's going on at those facilities. You know, nothing bad is going to happen. Nothing's going to get past me. Oy. Let's hope. But I do have a concern. It does strike some concerns to me. I'm not really sure if they're not biting off more than they chew when they say this kind of stuff. Now, the supposed change for the better, there is an outlook on this that shows, that has optimism way up. Even in my heart, even this little lonely little guy in San Antonio, you know, the migrant children are to be moved from a border patrol custody in jail-like facility to a shelter formed by the Department of Health and Human Services, the HHS. Shelters, and here we go with like the comparisons, shelters with breathing room as opposed to the cramped and crowded spaces. Shelters with stuff like windows, since most of the BP custody facilities have had migrants who haven't seen sunlight in days. That's, wow. Again, in the darkness of the, you know, stuff like that. The HHS scheduled take turns to shower as opposed to the Border Patrol custody facilities where they're sleeping on, where they haven't gone taking showers in days. They'll have like one, and then, you know, there'll be days afterwards where they're sitting in their own, you know, in their own, without a shower, you know. I mean, needless to say, the hygienic problems alone that come out of that. Bunk beds with blankets as opposed to a cold floor with one thermal sheet, and that was pretty alarming. To think of these kids getting their the bunk beds with blankets is actually, again, it just raises hope for a better future here. And again, the take turns for the usage of the showers and stuff, and the restroom facilities. Well, yeah, that's good organization. I mean, I can remember elementary schools where we'd have to do that. Come out of the classroom, get in line, and then go take turns using the restroom. A certain number of limited kids at a time, which only stands to reason that that's the best way to handle this. Again, as opposed to hitting the showers one day, and then from that point on, while in captivity, until whenever they get to you, that's just some serious. That could lead to a serious hygienic problem, And then you got the Title 42, where if a kid appears to be sick, maybe even with COVID, the kid automatically gets thrown out. And back to south of the border, where families, not just children, but whole family members, they're getting abducted and taken and just going through some very serious crimes against them. Now, this particular thing about the bunk beds and the plumbing and the showers, access to sunlight and breathing room, it does make me wonder, where else can we have a donation station, because right now just a couple of churches here and there are actually picking up donations, and more than likely, if it's a church, it's also being shared with the Americans here. The homeless people at the food bank who get in line with the food bank. And I don't really see a problem with that. What I do see, however, is a possible shortage of donation stations, a possible shortage of facilities, and it might be not be that big of a deal if we had an actual headquarters. I know San Antonio has a food bank that's just this incredibly large warehouse and is capable of organizing food and fluids, sometimes even medicines, and even not baby formula, and the stuff to reactivate the electrolytes, the drinks that reactivate electrolytes. I can't think of it right now, but sometimes those are there at the food banks also, at the food donations. And from that food warehouse scattered around to different parts of the city, that speaks more volumes than just some little, one church organization. No offense, but it does speak more volumes. It does says a lot more than just some church place, one single church. Maybe if the whole denomination was to actually get together, that would be pretty cool. But for right now, I mean, they're scattered they're little points, and they're scattered all over the city. And I really don't know which one would be the best, which one's the most effective to go to. Not like the food bank, the San Antonio food bank, where there is a warehouse and it's, it's guaranteed to get to people. Speaking of people, the next segment of this comment, again, just coming from this little guy from Nowheresville, San Antonio, just a rideshare driver that has to hear all the hype and rhetoric back here, from whatever end of the spectrum, The immigrants are not a problem. The immigrants are destroying the country. Whatever end of the spectrum that they're on. I usually have to hear about it back here. One of those things is that Biden is just opening all the borders and letting everybody in, and it's causing a problem. Technically, Biden is exposing the migrants that have to be. There is an expulsion of migrants that Biden has authorized. And it's mostly due to the lack of capacity of border protection facilities. Many of us down here on the bottom end, we're wondering what would be the difference between Biden and the previous administrations. Well, for one, Biden's deporting whole families. He's not doing that separation thing, which in actuality is the proven mess of it all. And the proof is also the fact that migrants are coming here and they're being put in detention facilities as opposed to facing blocked, closed borders and being left to being subjected to whatever criminal organization is south of the border. That's a huge difference there. Which, is still worse than being deported by Biden. You just got some families that don't have the paperwork, can't be placed into a holding facility because of how large the family is, and then to top it all off, amongst them you'll have the smugglers and all them who pretend to pose as the head of the household, and they ask Junior what's his name, and they're like, pues quien sabe, who knows, they probably just said, tell him my name is Juan. How do you know that? When most kids say it's daddy, those little clues there that show that it's not an actual family, Where's your mommy? I don't know. I last saw her back in my home country while sitting next to the woman that's transporting him into there, saying, oh, me and my children. It's those little things that let the law enforcement, say, okay, you got to face deportation, and they go to the facilities wherever applicable in Central and South America. That's always how the process has actually worked up until the previous administration, where the word was, you're being blocked. We can't send you to those embassies in Central and South America. You should have reported yourself to them in the first place. And that's really what added on, another technique that added on to the mess of the migration that was going on. I mean, I remember photos of people underneath highway bridges, just before the cold came in or before a storm would come in, and a lot of people, getting sick and dying, and then the rest getting picked off by criminal organizations down there, while at the same time, those that were held in captivity here were being trespassed against by adult staff members, and then blaming it on young adults. The boys will be boys statements that, so to see the difference between that and what's going on now, again, it just raises the hopes. It raises the hopes for some kind of solution. There's a talk that it might go as far into 2024. This type of rescue the asylum seekers. And here's where I go off script. Here's where I go off script with my personal statements. America used to gather people who were stripped of their lands, their possessions, their identity, by oppressive powers, whether it be as something as ragtag as a criminal organization, or as something as powerful as a militia-driven government, militia-styled working government. You know, America used to send guns and train people in their country. You know, now obviously we can't take them there. We should accept the migrants, train them to fight, and do our part in blocking off whatever it is that, blocking off or destroying whatever it is that makes the oppressors in their home country strong. Now, oil used to be a real big way of doing that, attacking the fuel lines. Obviously, you can't do that concerning Central and South American countries, because it's not really just oil that fuels them. It's the marijuana. You know, we legalize it here, we can destroy the bad crap, corrupt crap down there. I think that would be a very good start, seeing as how that's the profit-making product that fuels the organized criminalizations that are booting civilians out of their country. You know, and then with us knocking out the political leaders that are turning a blind eye, if not actually are a part of the organized criminals, you know, at whatever level. And what I mean by that, in California, there's a certain part of one of the cities, I think it was Los Angeles or San Diego, I can't remember which one, where Los Bandidos, a gang that is known as a biker gang here in Texas, but Los Bandidos in California infiltrated the police in their city, in the city over there in California, and became sheriffs and anointed other sheriffs through an initiation styled promotion, where if the bandito wanted to be a sheriff, he had to kill somebody out in the streets. And it was usually a Latino on Latino crime thing, which is one of the reasons why it's usually overshadowed through the media and everything like that. And technically, I only know it by one particular article. And in a way, it makes sense, given the fact that certain southeastern countries had sheriffs that were KKK. You know, so to think of a West Coast bandito cop, you know, that does not really sound far-fetched to me, you know, or to any of us down here at the shallow end of the pool. It actually makes a lot of sense. So when reverting back to the migration crisis, where all of these innocent, defenseless people need to be, you know, not just rescued, but they need to be saved. They need the training. They need the armory. They need the ammunition and the guns to take on somebody that's powerful enough to run them out of their own country. You see what I'm saying? I only got about 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna try to wrap this up. There's actually a whole crap load of levels that I can go to, but our part of America to go over to Central and South America to annihilate the dirty cops that are turning a blind eye to all the activity that's going on, to annihilate the politicians at a political level in the name of, you know, world safety. You know, I'm sure there's some kind of ruling that can be put into effect, given the fact that this is in the Americas, and, you know, that is a security problem. There is a security risk. There's a terrorist risk, you know. Honestly, something like that needs to be looked into. And again, I know that's not exactly what I was talking about earlier. This is me going off script. just throwing out a solution. I really don't think that that's far-fetched. But we got a lot of people that are coming over here, unaccompanied minors. We've had a few thousand, which means more than likely in the tens, if not a couple of hundred kids did not make it this far. You know, especially if they're coming from the other side of Mexico into all the little mini countries of Central America. If not out of the half a dozen that are down in South America, as far south as Venezuela, maybe even as far as, Uruguay. Who knows? The thing is that it really needs to work the way it is right now, where we're accepting them, we're vetting them, we're doing background checks, we're testing them, we're COVID testing them as well, letting detectives do their job and piecing together as to whether or not that guy coming in, that woman coming in, has these kids, if those are his or her kids at all. Are they really their kids? And then let the detectives do their job. Don't just put Border Patrol to lock them up in these holding facilities, jail-like cells, and then let them suffer. That's not solving anything. That doesn't solve anything. Let law do the job. And with this, I'm kind of hoping that it does actually produce more jobs, particularly with detectives, law enforcement, detectives, medical. I'd like to actually see hospitals and medicals, even like little ones like Conceptra and Texas WellMed Clinic and all them, just start setting up shops down along the border to to give all these people in jobs that are they're going into the medical field and trying very hard. I transport a lot of the nurses and medical people that want to be EMTs also. I transport a lot of them, and some of them are trying to make ends meet. It'd be nice to actually have more jobs available taking care of them, as well as getting them set along with all the other government agencies. Okay, I'm running out of time right now. Those are my thoughts. You got any? Post them. Stay safe out there. We'll catch y'all later. Chris out.